My next Patreon question comes from Joshua, who's interested about what determines the studio logos that open movies. For the record, I was not sure what to title this video due to the complexity of the question, but I tried my best. Once in a while, a movie is distributed co-financed by two of the major Hollywood studios, resulting in two major studio logos opening the film. It's my understanding that, in most, if not all these cases, the first logo to show up is of the studio responsible for the film's domestic distribution, while the second logo to show up is of the studio responsible for the film's international distribution. In a few of these cases, however, for instance Titanic, Castaway, and The Indian in the Cupboard, only one of the two studio logos shows up in the film, instead of both of them. Why is this? This is something that genuinely fascinated me too, especially as someone who loves watching the logos at the start of the film. There are many behind-the-scenes dealings that happen that determine these sorts of co-productions, and the order of the logos. There are certainly cases where the logos of two major studios begin a film. One example I can think of is the film adaptation of the musical The Producers. Universal Pictures released the film domestically, while Columbia Pictures was the international distributor, and both logos opened the movie. Steven Spielberg's The Adventures of Tintin is another one. Paramount and Columbia Pictures both co-financed it, with the former handling domestic and the latter releasing the film overseas. Again, both their logos appear at the start of Tintin. Recently there was Blade Runner 2049. Columbia Pictures and Alcon Entertainment were responsible for most of the financing, with Columbia releasing it internationally and Warner Brothers paying a fee for the domestic rights. All their logos open the film. But what about cases where we don't see all the logos? One example is Terry Gilliam's Brazil. Universal Pictures released it domestically and famously had a conflict with Gilliam over the cut shown in North America. 20th Century Fox handled the international release, but most versions of the film only opened with the Universal logo. Joshua's example of Titanic is a particularly interesting case, considering how this co-production deal came to be. 20th Century Fox was the studio that initially greenlit the film and had planned on releasing it worldwide. However, when it became obvious James Cameron was going to far exceed the initially planned budget, Fox brought in Paramount as a co-financier. Remember, $200 million budgets were not that common back then. Paramount agreed to release it domestically, while Fox became the international distributor. Yet, strangely, despite all the money Fox poured into the movie, only the Paramount logo appears on domestic prints. I have no idea what the deal-making conversations and boardroom meetings were like that decided on this arrangement, but it is puzzling. The newest M. Night Shyamalan film also had a fascinating co-financing agreement. Because Disney owns the rights to Unbreakable and Glass is a sequel to that film, they allowed Universal and Blumhouse the rights to use those characters on the condition that Disney retain international rights. I actually hope to see the Touchstone logo again, but nope, the film only had the Universal and Blumhouse logos. And for the film's overseas release, Disney used the Buena Vista International label instead. Then there were films where the studio logos are more of a contractual obligation. Before Disney started distributing the Marvel movies themselves, Paramount released 3 of them. In fact, Paramount was the studio that originally greenlit The Avengers and Iron Man 3. Disney eventually wanted to handle the production and distribution rights themselves, starting with The Avengers. Disney paid Paramount a lot of money for this, which they agreed to. Part of the agreement was that their logo would open The Avengers and Iron Man 3. That's why you see the mountain at the start of those billion-dollar blockbusters, even though Paramount had nothing to do with their production and distribution. Paramount also got a small percentage of the box office, so they ended up doing pretty well off of them. I hope I answered that question to your satisfaction. The deal-making in Hollywood is so complex and the contracts so long, there are likely a lot of reasons why certain logos are played and others aren't. Let me know of other strange cases, and thank you for your question, Joshua.